5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition. Strap in. You're about to listen to the hottest sounds in the mix. In the mix.
Welcome back. I have my special guest with me today who I am looking forward to having this conversation with. Miss Tamika Graham and Mr. Harvey Murphy. Thank you so much for coming to my show to talk to me about mass incarceration.
Thanks for having us.
No problem. No problem at all. I wanted to start off by giving everyone a background about what you do with Just Leaders USA and how you became advocates for ending mass incarceration.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tamika Graham. So I am a leader on the Just Leadership USA campaign for Close Rikers, as well as Free New York and Build Communities. The purpose for me even becoming an advocate is because I myself am directly impacted. I served 7.5 years in the Department of Correctional facilities, and after seeing and hearing people's stories and seeing what people go through in there, not even just the incarcerated individuals, but everyone as a whole, including the staff, I realized that there's a major crisis in the United States and something needs to be done about it. And right now, you know, the targets are the people who live in poverty. Mm-hmm. So it's not just the black and brown community that's affected, it's everyone that's affected. Mm-hmm. And not enough people realize that. So I'm just here to fight for the injustices of our system. Mm-hmm. This is a world where our Constitution says that we're innocent until proven guilty. However, in the state of New York and any other state in the U.S., you're actually guilty, and you have to try to find a way to prove your innocence, and that's just not the way. That's not the way it's supposed to be.
Right. Yep.
So I'm here to put an end to all that.
And I applaud you. Everyone, I met Tamika at a panel for Rikers Island. It was April 24th, 2018, called Rikers Island, Present and Future. And when I heard her speak about her experiences, and along with some of the other individuals that was on the panel, I said, I have to invite her on my show because I want her to continue to keep telling her story and to try and help other people who are still behind bars, and also to talk about rights, because unfortunately in our communities, just because of the color of our skin, all of a sudden we all look familiar of a crime someone else committed.
Absolutely.
So I asked her to come here to talk about it and to give insight on how we could help Tamika and Harvey along the way of trying to reform and trying to bring awareness to mass incarceration and everything that goes on within the jail and prison systems. So Harvey, you're next.
Honestly, my name is Harvey Murphy. I'm directly impacted. I've been up north twice. I've been on Rikers Island 4 or 5 times. And I just want to, honestly, I work for an amazing organization called Just Leadership USA. I'm a community organizer. And what I do is we try to educate the community on mass incarceration. And I appreciate the listeners. I appreciate you for having us here. This is a big issue in New York. Honestly, like I sat in this cell, and I sat in this cell and I spoke to a CO, and the CO I asked him, I said, what is this vent for? He was like, if it was like the world was coming to an end, we drop tear gas in there that kills everybody inside the facility. This is a max facility. I'm like, I'm not even a max inmate, and excuse my French, we don't even use that word inmates neither. Let me just correct myself on that. Inmates is not the word we use. At the end of the day, they still people. So I sat there, and he said we released a gas that actually will kill off everybody in this unit, everybody in the jail. So I'm like, wow.
So instead of, like he said, a catastrophe happened, instead of trying to help you out, they would kill you.
They would kill you. They would kill you in there. So one of the things I'm like, wow, I kind of looked at it. I was looking at this whole I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I can't believe this. And one of the things that I did, I guess this is like my calling. honestly, the fact that how the system was, as far as like you would kill an innocent human being. Because mind you, I didn't commit the crime. I took a plea bargain, and I couldn't go to trial because they would have gave me more time, so I had to cop out. Instead of fighting my case, I had to cop out. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm innocent, and I will be put to death in this cell.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, I had to come home and really, really stand on this and fight back against the system.
Oh.
So may I interject for a moment? So I had a similar situation where I was up in Takana Correctional Facility, and everybody was worried about terrorism and wondering if, what would happen if the prison itself were to be bombed. And having a conversation with the correction officer, he told us that we were not to leave. So like if the prison got bombed and there was a way for us to get away, not to escape, but to get away to save our lives, that we were not allowed to, and that they are supposed to shoot us. And the reason is because we can then side with the people we can side with the terrorists. So of course, if you want to get out of prison, you're automatically, this is a thought, this is the way some sick-minded individuals think. They think that you're in a world of trouble, the world may possibly be getting ready to end, and the only thing that the incarcerated individual is thinking about is getting out of jail. They don't think that we're thinking about saving our lives, saving other people's lives around us, saving our family, our friends, the neighbors in the community. They think that we're just worried about
getting
freeing
away.
ourselves. So no, we're not allowed to leave. The incarcerated individual is supposed to stay there and just get what's coming to them.
When I hear stuff like that, it bothers me because I don't understand how someone can actually come up with, like Tamika said, a law, where that could actually happen to a human being.
That's because most people do not believe someone that either commits a crime or is sitting in prison behind said crime is an actual human being. So it goes back to slavery, right?
Yes.
When people of color were considered subhuman,
yes,
we weren't a full person. So when you're incarcerated, it's the same thing. You're like a second-class citizen. You're subhuman. You no longer are a human being. And the person in blue or gray, or white, depending on the color shirt that they're wearing, they forget that they too could easily be in the same exact position.
Yes.
They forget that, they could maybe try to make that yellow light just before it turns red and maybe dart out a second too soon and run into either a pedestrian or another vehicle. And although it was an accident, they are now charged as a criminal. Yes. And they are now sitting in the same seat that of this unhuman person is now in. But of course they're gonna want to be treated like a human.
And I always growing up, my mother always taught me, you never judge human beings because you never know, like you said, how your life is gonna end up. So I always kept an open mind about everything because, like you said, any given day, anything could happen. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm gonna try not to cry because when I hear stuff like this, it hurts.
It's because you're human.
That's right.
It's because you're human. So be very much in touch with your feelings. I may cry up here also.
When you were released, what was the first thing that went through your mind? Because I know you have to make a transition from being incarcerated to now being back into society. What was what went through your mind? Because I watched a show on TV where this guy was incarcerated, and he was incarcerated for a couple of years, and he said, I become accustomed to being incarcerated, so I really don't want to be back in society. So he committed crimes to go back because he said he was comfortable. What was your thought when she walked out? Because I know it's hard to come back into society because, like you said, people think of you differently. And if the media get a hold of your story, forget it. Because then you have to try and prove to everyone that's not who you are, the way the media painted your picture. Then when you go for job interviews, then they try to hold that against you. So and sometimes you have family members that turn their back on you. So it's like you're starting all over again. What was your process?
So my process was a little different from most people's process. I had family support when I was inside, and my family support ended 4 months before I was released. And but during my time that I was incarcerated, I did programs such as rehabilitation through the arts, which is RTA, where you use the arts to be able to cope with your feelings, to be able to express your feelings, to be able to even open up a conversation that you may have to have with your child or your parent or another sibling or just anybody. And so I had them, and then I had BPI, which is the Barred Prison Initiative, where I graduated with my associate's degree in liberal arts. And they had a few fellowships, and one of the fellowships that they had was the BPI task teaching fellowship. So the task is the high school equivalency exam that was formerly called the GED, which you really should just get your associate's degree instead of dropping out of high school and going for this equivalency diploma. So I was able to use them, and then I had Fortune Society. So I had outside entities that serves formerly incarcerated or returning citizens, that population itself. So my transition as far as work was concerned was great, but my transition as far as just walking outside and seeing a sidewalk, because what people don't understand, there's no sidewalks in prison. And you know, some people are like, oh, it's a sidewalk, but you miss even the smallest things that you would never believe that you would miss, like sitting in a traffic jam. You miss seeing a dog running down the street, or a kid playing in the street. So when I first was released, I didn't go home to see my family. And the reason I didn't go home to see my family is because I needed to take in my freedom. I needed to smell the air, regardless of how polluted it is. I needed to breathe that. I needed to walk down a city street. I needed to get on a train, which was horrible because the air in the station was so suffocating to where I couldn't breathe. And I've never had like anxiety or anything before, but being inside this train station at 59th Street, I had to leave out to wait for the train because it was just so breathtaking. And I didn't want to be bombarded with all the questions of how does it feel to be free? Right. You know, what do you want to eat, or what do you want to do? I just wanted and needed time to just
get
relax.
Yourself together. Yeah.
I needed time to just see, feel, and understand that this is real, because it really it's surreal when the judge first sentences you. It feels like that day is never gonna come. It feels like your whole life is just ended. Yeah. And regardless of what you do while you're behind those walls, because of the way the system is set up, it doesn't prepare you for that first minute of you stepping outside of those gates. It doesn't prepare you for a Metro card if you were arrested and locked up prior to Metro cards. Right. It doesn't prepare you for smartphones. It doesn't prepare you for having to do online resumes, because you don't really go into a regular establishment to see if they're hiring you. You know, this whole online world nowadays. Yes. You're not prepared for it, so I kind of was feeling lost, because You know, I got arrested in 2010, and my Galaxy had the little quarterly keyboard. You know, there were touchscreen phones out, but I myself did not own one. So now, 4 hours of me being home, I now have a cell phone in my hand, and I'm looking at it like, what am I supposed to do?
Right, right.
You know, how do I do this? How do I do that? And it's just, it becomes overwhelming, especially when you know that you have to, you know, there's certain things in place. So I wasn't able to go home to my family.
We have a
You know, my uncle is a retired police officer. He had firearms in his home. I was going into the basement, but because he was a relative of mine, that means I have access to the rest of the house. So if he wasn't a relative and I was renting his basement apartment from him, then I could have paroled there.
Right.
But because I have this relative which means I have access, I couldn't. My mom is a foster care parent. So because she has foster children in the house, I as a felon can't live in the home. And I'm from Staten Island, and they put me in a shelter in the Bronx. And the shelter was just like the facility that I had just left from. And when I walked in the shelter, I was like, this is jail, and me being here is going to send me back to prison. And I had to have a conversation with my parole officer, like, listen, everything that's going on in here right now is what I don't want to be around. I actually wasn't around it when I was incarcerated. I don't feel like I should be around it while I'm free. And I'm trying to maintain my citizenship here. I'm trying to maintain me being on my positive path because I've made changes. And it was just crazy that I couldn't go home. So I had to find housing, which is a huge problem, because you know there's a housing crisis in the U.S. and a lot of the people that are homeless are returning citizens because they're not allowing us to go back to our family because even though we're free, we're still not free. There's stipulations on us. And you know, just that process alone, not having someone who's been behind bars with me to understand what I'm feeling and going through, that was hard. So when I first got home, I actually spent the evening with 2 females that I did my time with because they were already out. They already went through the struggle that I'm getting ready to go to. And I know that they're going to give me that breath of fresh air that I actually need at that time.
I had a guest on my last show. She actually called in from Vegas, and she was telling me about her process of transitioning out of prostitution and how she went on to get her associate's degree, but unfortunately she's living in a shelter because, like you said, it's hard to find housing, where people try to make changes in where people try to make changes, and unfortunately this world don't allow you to do so because they already consider you a criminal. And they don't allow you to grow, so you fall back into what you was doing.
You see, I definitely would like to touch on that. Honestly, it was very hard for me at times, going through the system, going through Rikers Island, dealing with the torment that happens on Rikers Island. You have to fight for everything. They got, I think on Wednesdays, I think they serve this box. It's called Frosties, Frosted Flakes. And it's like they stereotype the Frosted Flakes with is a gang. So if you're not down with the Bloods that day, you just don't eat Frosties. And you have to fight for that. You have to fight for Frosties. You have to fight for extra milk. You have to fight to get on the phone. And dealing with that torment on Rikers Island and having to come home and be a productive citizen to society, that was one of the most hardest things in my life to accomplish. And it took me about, because the system is a revolving door, and that's how they make it. They make it a revolving door, and they made it for me. They made it a revolving door for me because for me to go out to society and be a productive citizen to society after the torment that I just dealt with, it was impossible. It was almost impossible. Honestly, it was almost impossible to deal with the torment that I had to deal with on Rikers Island and come home and be a productive citizen to society. So this is why it's a cycle, because now when you come home, you so mad at society
Yes.
because you feel like society owes you this and society owes you that, and you feel like wow, like I couldn't believe society put me in a place like this and expect for me to be this person is very hard. It's very, very hard. The transition.
I was speaking to my uncle because I talked to him about my shows before I started, and I brought up to him, I was like, I respect people who come out, because I would be mad as hell, like to come out, to go through the things that I went through, you know, where I was, and then to come out and to be judged and still have someone kicking in my back when I try to make progress.
That's right.
And I remember my uncle saying to me, we will never know how someone like you and Tamika feel, because we haven't gone through it, but the only thing we could do is offer the support.
That's right.
And he said, I'm sure at some point for them to move on, they have to, you know, let go of the grudge and keep progressing, because no matter what, people are going to still have something to say about them, if that makes sense.
Yes, it makes perfectly sense, because at the end of the day, society look at people who allegedly commit a crime as they committed a crime. What about the people that, and our argument is not, we're not saying that people don't commit crime. You know, people commit crime, and crime is going on out there. But one of the things I do like to say on air, that the prison population is down, so people's not committing crime how they was committing back in 1992 and 1996. The prison population is down. So it is a stereotype that a person that's being reformed and coming back to the system, it is a stereotype, you know, and every day you have to live with that. 17 years, here it is. 17 years later, you still have to deal with the stigmatization that you got arrested.
Right.
And it's sad, because at the end of the day, you feel like, yo, I served time. I did what I had to do, and I put this behind me. Why am I still dealing with this? And it's like,
because that's the first thing they look at. I know.
that's right. That's right.
The first thing.
That's the first thing they look at.
That's that question. Have you ever been incarcerated? Do you have a felony? And it's like, well, you know, once I was sentenced to my time, and once I did my time, then that means that I should have the opportunity to that were provided for me prior to me committing this crime,
Right.
because obviously I'm serving the time for it. You know, I paid my debt,
Right.
and I paid my debt to the judicial system, and now I'm home paying my debt to society itself, but it goes unnoticed because I have that felony over my head. And you know, it doesn't just affect jobs, it affects housing,
Right.
it affects schooling.
Yes.
So we finally was able to ban the box on college applications, thanks to Layla Martinez. And you know, hopefully it'll just be banned all around, everywhere, because if you don't allow a person to, if you don't allow a person to have opportunities, if you just automatically shut that door of opportunity from the gate, what do you think the person is gonna do?
Exactly.
If you leave them no other choice. If I can't get a job at McDonald's, because I'm a felon, I obviously won't be able to get a job in the real world as a felon. And it's like, what do you expect? You know, we have kids being locked up nowadays.
Yes.
Most of the population are the youth. So some of these kids haven't even graduated from high school. They probably didn't even start their freshman year.
Right.
Because of whatever social factors that were going on around them. And they're locked up for 5, 6, 7 years. So obviously they were a teen when they went in. Unless they did summer youth, they didn't have a job to begin with. And you know, when they come out, from whatever skills that they were able to acquire while they were in there,
Right.
which mostly are criminal type of skills, because you'll go to prison to learn how to be a better criminal.
I remember you mentioned that.
Yeah,
on the panel.
You learn to be a better criminal.
Yes.
I can't give Harvey soap if he needs it. It is considered an unauthorized exchange.
Right.
So in order for him to be able to wash his behind, I have to go to an officer and I have to ask them permission to let me give him this soap. And if they tell me no, I can't give him this soap. So you have to do what they call like smuggling.
Right.
You have to smuggle food. You have to smuggle cosmetics.
They force you to do it.
They force you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because
I
what am
need
I
soap.
supposed to let them be?
I need soap.
Mm-hmm.
What am I supposed to do?
Right.
So you learn how to become a better criminal. You don't learn how to become a better citizen. There's nothing in play to help you to build some type of skills.
Mm-hmm.
So when you come out, you can get a job, even if it's just at minimum wage. So it's like, if all these doors of opportunity are closed
Right.
down, what is our future?
Mm-hmm.
The children, what is our future supposed to do?
I agree. And I recall, I think you did a podcast
I think so.
about they was trying to take away books.
Yes.
Yes.
They was trying to take away books on Rikers Island. I mean, in the prison system. Period.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely spoke about that. Actually, it was books and packages.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I spoke about was, you don't even understand how it is to tell a young man, another man, that he can't eat. Do you know what it is if they cut the packages? That's all people, packages and visits in the yard. That's what people, that's the only thing you got to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
So now, not only that, if you take somebody food, how can you tell another grown man, if I'm sitting here eating, I go to commissary because my family looking out for me. So I'm over here with a bowl of rice and seafood rice, and I'm eating, and you over here, you starving, and it's nothing I could do for you.
Mm-hmm.
I could share, but I can only share but so much,
Right.
because this is my family's
Right.
so it's like, now it becomes a conflict, because now it is, I'm not going to share all my food with you, and I
Right.
understand that you're hungry. You might be my friend, or you might be my, I might correspond with you on a day-to-day basis, and now it becomes a conflict of interest.
That's what I was getting ready
because
to say. Yes.
now it's like, yo, Harvey, you're not looking out for me no more.
Right.
And I'm like, yo, bro, I can't feed you. Now it's like, also, what's up? Like, I'm hungry though, bro.
Mhm.
Like, I'm starving. And it's like, bro, I can't, so now it's like, oh, but now I can't stop him from going to take something from somebody else.
Right.
I can't tell him that, because this man is hungry. So now that leaves violence inside these prison systems.
Mhm.
That's the only thing it do, is bring up the violence inside the prison system, because
Right.
you cannot tell another man when he's
Right.
hungry to stop.
Right. Right.
You can't.
Right.
And the reason why a lot of people somebody has said, well, they do give them 3 meals a day. Okay, they do. The first meal that you get is at
Edible.
5:45.
In the morning?
In the morning.
Mhm.
The next meal is at 11. The last meal you will see is at 4:45, depending on if they call your house first. If they call your house first, you get in there at 4:45, and you won't see another meal till the next day. And honestly, man, a Tyler can't even live off that.
Yeah.
You have people in there that's working out. You have people in there that's, that like to eat. That's
Mhm.
stressed.
Right.
I just can't imagine. It's hard for people to imagine how it is when somebody is hungry, man, and somebody else next to them got food, man. And
It's the smallest things that could cause
it
the
is.
conflict.
It is, and that's
soap, like you mentioned.
that's right.
Like how you get soap and I don't have soap.
That's right.
And then the arguments start, and then toothpaste
That's
also.
right.
So it's, gosh, how do you cope with it? Because in one of the videos I was watching, that I'm gonna show later on, one of the gentlemen that's being interviewed, he said, I had no idea Rikers was gonna be the way it is, and he said, when I walked in, right off the bat, it was men looking at me,
Fresh fish.
Yes. And then he was saying, then the next thing you know, I'm being attacked. And he was saying, I'm from the streets, but it's a different level in here.
Different.
So how do you cope with, like, how do you maintain yourself, your
Let me see,
mental,
let me see.
without cracking?
Honestly, you don't cope. You don't cope with it. You deal with it on a day-to-day basis, every day, because every day is something new going on in that
Mhm.
facility. It's you sit in the dorm with 54 individuals, and everybody, that's 54 emotions that's gonna explore every day.
Mhm.
So me personally speaking on the I took it as a day by day, and it was more or less when I came home, I had to like understand like where I was at and where I want to go. But being in there is like every day is something new. Somebody's arguing about this, there's a fight about this, there's a fight about that. So just, it wasn't, I had to understand that I had to take this day by day. It was a day by day struggle, because every day you never knew what could happen. Somebody got busted in the head with a phone, or somebody got cut, or somebody's locker got broken in. So it was a day by day thing with me, I could say.
With me, I had to find things to occupy my time. So sitting on Rikers, there's nothing really to help you to cope with.
No.
You, and mind you, when you're sitting on Rikers, you're not even sentenced yet. You know, you're waiting to be sentenced. So there's a lot that's going through your head. You're thinking about your case, you're thinking about your job, you're thinking about the family that you left behind. You have no idea whatsoever when you're going to get out. And at the same time that you're thinking about those things, you're also dealing with the disrespect from the officers. You're dealing with the disrespect from the other incarcerated individuals. You're dealing with whatever you're dealing with their coping mechanisms.
Yes.
So everyone that's inside of here, whether you work there or you're just there because you have no choice, because that's where, you know, you don't have a bail, or you can't pay your bail and you're just sitting there trying to defend yourself. Everybody is trying to cope, and everybody copes differently. Some people feel like, well, you know what, I'm just going to cause more havoc.
Right.
Some people try to read, some people try to watch TV. But if you have 30 to 50 other people trying to watch this TV, you can't agree on one show.
Right.
Or if you're trying to read, because you only have one area that you can do everything in. You eat, you watch TV, you read, you write your letters, all in this one spot. So if I'm trying to be productive and maybe read a book, I really can't focus on this book, because maybe there's somebody slamming dominoes over here. There's somebody arguing about a game of cards they were just playing over here. There's someone else that wants to watch CSI, but somebody wants to watch sports, and somebody else wants to watch Love and Hip Hop.
Right.
So there's a whole arguing going over there. Then there's only three phones on a unit. Two of them you may be able to completely hear out of. One of them may be broken. So everybody's trying to use those two phones. So there's arguments going on over there. And then you may need some soap, and you go to the officer for this soap, and the officer wants to give you half of the bar as opposed to the whole entire bar. Or you need some toilet paper, and they give you some of the toilet paper, not the roll of toilet paper. So now they're arguing with the officer because they're trying to get things, you know, to take care of their hygiene. And it's like, it's like a total ball and world of confusion and chaos inside of there. So what I did is I sit back and I observe people, and I would like play cards with some people. I ended up getting like a little small, close-knitted group of people that I basically did everything with.
Right.
And we spoke about the things that were bothering us. We spoke about our cases. We spoke about our families. We spoke about getting out of here. We encouraged each other. But that was all at the hands of us.
Right.
So, you know, you have two types of people in the world, right? You have those who want help.
Right.
So they get it. And then you have those who need the help.
Right.
But they don't realize they need it. So they just do what it is that they want to do. So if you're not willing to help yourself, and you're not strong enough, you're not strong enough to help yourself, you're not strong enough to ask for help, you're not strong enough to seek it out, you're going to die in there. And I don't mean like physically die. Mentally and emotionally, you die. You just totally die. Now, in a state level, it's a little different because there's programming and stuff. You're able to move around.
Right.
On Rikers, you're really just sitting in that housing unit all day with the same people,
waiting
the
to be
same
sentenced.
faces, waiting to be sentenced. So, of course, you know, all types of things come into play. That shouldn't, because what happens when you have 30 girls? What happens if you have just 2 girls in a room by themselves? all day long. So imagine having 36 other women in the same exact location as you all day. You can't move. You can't go nowhere. You shower with them. The only time you're not with them is if you go and lock yourself in your cell, which of course is extremely small, with a small little window, with no air coming through. So it's like, do I isolate myself? Do I put myself in solitary confinement for my own?
When you think about it, that is solitary.
It is. Yeah, right. It is. And then, you know, in some areas they have dorms. So when you're in a dorm, there's up to 100 people in this dorm. And you're still seeing the same things, the same people, and you're dealing with the same stuff. So it's like there really is no one way, no specific way to just be able to cope. Sometimes, like, I'd play handball. If I was able to go to Iraq, I'd play handball. You know, I'm smacking something around. It's helping me to release some frustration. You know, I might go and play some dominoes so I can slam it down on the table. Right. I'm frustrated. I don't know when I'm getting out of here. I know I really shouldn't be in here. Why? And you encounter so many different people from so many different walks of life. So, like, you're not just in there by yourself. You're in there with people who have not bathed in weeks, months, years. You're in there with people who are nodding out all over the place. You're in there with people who just have very nasty habits. They're spitting, they're hocking it up, they're touching everything around you. And it's just like, wow, this is very unhygienic. Then you're in there with people who have mental health issues, with which they shouldn't be there to begin with, but now they're in the same exact area with you. So now you have to figure out how you're going to move around them, because you're really not sure. At first you probably think that the person is angry. You're like, oh, this person is crazy. You don't realize that they just really have a condition. There's something going on with them and they need help. But now you have them in here in population with everybody else.
In your personal space.
In your personal space. And you have to try to be okay with that. You have to be okay with this person who's spreading feces all over the place in a communal area. You have to be okay with someone who's urinating on themselves and they're sitting right next to you or on a chair that you might end up picking up afterwards. Because not like you have hand sanitizer or anything. You don't have any type of cleaning supplies that just on hand. You'd be like, oh, let me disinfect this real fast before I sit down. You can't. So now you're at possible risk of catching some type of a disease or illness or something. And then you have people who are just
so it's like a pot of all different types of everything.
You know how the U.S. is the melting pot?
Yes.
That's what prison is.
That's what prison is.
And the thing is, these are the same people that you're on the street with.
Yes.
These are the same people that's in your neighborhoods, but you don't know. You don't know because, you know, you're on your regular day-to-day life. You may pass somebody and they might be talking to themselves and you might think that they're crazy, but they might be talking to themselves because maybe they just went through some type of traumatizing situation and they're trying to deal with it. But you walk past them and you don't know.
Right.
These are the same people that you're sitting now in this closed area with. So you have no choice but to know. You have no choice but to be aware of other individuals, of other human beings that are going through whatever it is they're going through. So you have to see this, and that affects you. Especially if you're a person who comes from a town or area where you're not used to seeing sickness. You're not used to seeing poverty. You're not used to seeing the effects of it. Now you're like, wow, it's like a total different world. Like you're in another planet.
Yes, in the video that I'm gonna show later, there's a woman in there also who is she's from Livingston, New Jersey. She went to school, got her degree, but her and her family was getting ready to be evicted. So where she worked, a lot of money come in for trust accounts and everything. So she scratched off the account number, put her name on there, and she got caught. So she was telling the story of when she was arrested and sent to it was Rikers that she went to. She said, I never seen anything like this before in my life. And she couldn't really even talk. She was crying because she said all the different personalities and all the different things that you see, it was overwhelming to her. So we gonna go to break. we gonna take a quick break and we gonna come back with some more with Tamika and Harvey, and we'll be right back. Yep. Oh man.
What do you do past counting all the bricks in the wall? I done read every story that's been on the walls. I done looked at every crack. I stare at the paint so much I can see the paint strokes in it. I'm so bored in my bed that I just sit there and squeeze my body, besides all the inanimated fantasies of murdering the CO who's at my door every day harassing me.
This is 5 Mualim Ak. He served 12 years in prison before getting out in 2012. 5 of those in total were spent in solitary confinement, which is used in prisons across the country as a form of punishment and as a means of keeping dangerous inmates away from the general population. 5 writes about his experience in solitary in a new book called Hell is a Very Small Place, which is composed of essays by people who have been in solitary or are still in solitary now. For most of us, spending 23 hours a day in a room by ourselves is unimaginable. For people like 5 and his friend Terrence Slater, who was released from a prison in upstate New York just a few months ago after spending more than a year in solitary, it's a memory that never really goes away.
If you sit in your cell and you worried about the time, you're gonna lose your mind in there. Because then you start thinking about what this person's doing. How's your family? How's your daughter? And you can't help but think about it. But you try to limit the amount of time that you focus on that by doing all these different things, puzzles, all type of stuff in there. Get soap, start making figurines out of the soap. You don't know what it's like to be in that cell. You don't know what it's like to hear people screaming, mad. This isn't something that we could easily just take a pill and erase. Often, I have dreams of officers coming in my cell.
2 major things happen in solitary. 1, sensory deprivation, right? Where you have no sound, where you have sight, where you have limited abilities to run and articulate your brain. There's also another thing, which is human validation, which plays a big part. Imagine being in your cell and the only person who can give you toilet tissue, bread, water, food, medical services, everything that you need down to a shower. Imagine those services and those things done by somebody who's trained to ignore you.
Does it feel different a year in than it felt at the beginning?
Totally.
Does it feel...
Your body's deteriorated, your facial hair annoys you, you don't know what your face looks like. You get so tired of talking to yourself, you start talking in your head. Solitary is strategically set up so that human beings trapped in cages next to other human beings can't have a system of communication.
Absolutely.
Every cell is not diagonally across from each other, it's on an angle. In order for you to kind of hear a person clearly, you go to the corner of the door. So now I could talk to you from my corner of the door across to your corner of your door.
You're talking about like literally
the edge of the door. Like I'm like, hey, what are you doing? You know, what are you doing? Because I got to say it twice. So that your voice can travel. So my voice can travel. I say it twice, right? But it becomes a part of. Sad to say, it's like a part of my. I still say things twice, even when I'm talking. I reconfirm it with another way of saying it articulately. It grows on you. People say, you know, oh, you're a survivor. Like, no, nobody survives solitary.
After completing one of his bids in the box, Terrence was given a job in the prison mess hall, where he was responsible for preparing meals that would be sent down to people in solitary.
It's Friday, macaroni and cheese and fish day. I'm feeding the brothers that's in the box. Civilian came and said, Slater, you're gonna have to level those scoops. I said, listen, I'm not gonna do that. I just finished doing a lot of time in the box. You're not gonna force me to starve these brothers. So naturally, not to get other additional trouble, I went and scooped the macaroni and cheese in there without leveling the scoop. They gave me a tier 2 for that.
That meant more time in isolation. 5 and Terrence told me story after story like this, describing the vicious cycle that kept pushing their release dates from solitary further and further back.
First time I did 90 days, but I ended up getting an additional 90 days because I came there, I didn't have any magazines, and we got a technique called fishing. So I shoot a pair of cards out from under my door with a line attached to it to connect with my other man who got the same contraption, get a magazine from him. The magazine gets caught on the door, the officer came, seen it, I get another 90 days.
What was it like just seeing another person after being in the box for 15 months?
Being in extreme isolation for so long, I was scared of crowds. Because I couldn't take with people bumping me and stuff. I couldn't take that, I couldn't accept it. Because I'm so used to having my space and owning my space.
The argument you'll hear from correctional officers and prison wardens is that solitary confinement is a necessary evil, an indispensable tool that guards rely on when dealing with inmates who would otherwise have no incentive to follow rules. But even if you're willing to accept that there's no alternative, it's become clear that prisons are relying on solitary way too much and subjecting people to it too readily. Solitary is arguably the most extreme form of punishment our justice system metes out, and it makes little sense that prison guards can decide more or less unilaterally when it's appropriate. How do you maintain a sense of who you are?
You don't. You live off of your memories because you have nothing else to accumulate to move forward. And then you end up having this short-term memory disorder, which is a part of the consequences of being in solitary, where you can't keep one train of thought for too long. And then you're dropped off in 42nd Street, Times Square, the biggest tourist spot in the world, with 20 million computers. It's a sensory overload.
How did it affect you? I mean, this just happened to you. Like, you got off that bus in Port Authority.
I felt something I haven't felt in years. I felt fear. Because I'm out here. I'm seeing how this is moving. People are walking dangerously close to me. I'm not used to that. I'm used to being in myself by myself. People are walking next to me, brushing me, hitting me. And I'm just reacting like, what's going on?
In 2015, Five started the Incarcerated Nation, an organization that focuses in part on providing newly released prisoners support as they transition back into society after experiencing solitary. When Terrence came home last October, he joined the organization, and with Five's help, he's finding his feet. What motivates him, Terrence says, is working with the Incarcerated Nation Corporation to help others who, like him, are still suffering from the effects of solitary.
I'm beginning to realize that I'm bad off, but I can't utilize that as a crutch for me not to do what's necessary. You see what I'm saying? I have to put all these things that can trip me up on the back burner because I have to do what's absolutely necessary for brothers that's coming out just like me, so that they don't have to feel fear when they come into the train station. They can see somebody like me standing with a sign with their name saying, look, bro, you're welcome here.
Hey everyone, we're back. Thank you for staying tuned, and now we're going to get into Mr. Harvey. Even though he was like, I don't know if I really want to talk to my phone.
Let me help you out.
Yes.
Bring us a little closer.
I just would like to touch on like my life, a brief story of my life, like far as what got me here and why I'm here on this radio show, standing tall on mass incarceration. You see, people don't understand like what directly impacted looks like. Directly impacted on us don't have to necessarily mean that you've been incarcerated. You got people out there that dealing with like torment and trials and tribulation and households, and what leads them to feel vulnerable to the prison system. And I was vulnerable to the prison system because when I surround myself around negative in my community because of mass incarceration, because of blocks that they call $1 million blocks. $1 million blocks, for instance, is if you snatch 30 young kids off a block, which they're doing now, the feds is indicting these projects, and they snatching about 40 young kids off the block. And you do the math, if you house 40 young kids, $287,000 a year to house one person in these facilities, that's called $1 million block. You snatched up $1 million off of one block. So brief, young coming up, my moms was strung out on drugs. My pops died in the game. He was down with the shower posse. He got killed at the age of 24. My moms was strung out. It was rough growing up. I got an older brother. My older brother was like my father. You know, I was always the one that was more or less like, you know, mommy's coming home. You know, Mama Love used to leave us in the house for about 4 days. I know my mom's probably gonna watch it. She's gonna be upset, but it's all right. So I was, like I said, I was one of them kids where, you know, mommy's coming home or mommy's at school. Ty, I got my brother name is Ty. And my brother used to be like, nah, Harvey, man, mommy not coming home, man. We gotta get something to eat. And I'm like, you know, where you going? He's like, yo, Harvey, I gotta get something to eat, man. You know what I mean? We've been in here 4 or 5 days, like we ain't eat nothing. And I remember that, you know, word for word, me telling my brother, like, yo, you know, Ty, don't leave me here. Like, you know, I don't want to be in the house by myself. Please, bro, don't leave me here. And it was like, yo, bro, man up. Like, man up. I'm the youngest brother, and we only 15 months apart. So, but he's way more, he was more stronger than me. He was more mentally, physically, he was more stronger than me. So it was times where he used to go outside the house and come back in the house with money, and the money have blood on it. And we didn't like, I didn't ask questions. I kind of knew, but it was sad that the fact that what we had to do to eat and what my brother had to do, and I kind of got an idea, you know, once it got to the bottom of it. So my mother came in, and then she knew something was up. Chinese food and snacks is all allowed, and next thing you know, my mom's just like, well, listen, she kind of like, you know, side with what my brother was doing. She knew what she knew what he was doing. It got to a point where she would run around the house and try to find the money and go in our room and, you know, like really look for the money. Like, with my brother, to the point where I used to be like, yo, Ty, just give her the money, man, just give her the money. My brother would be like, shut up. And I remember that, it was rough. So now that I got a little older now, right, all I idolized was the drug dealer on the block. And I wanted to be the drug dealer on the block. 95% negative. I'm gonna be negative. So I got locked up and I didn't learn my lesson. It's no lesson to be learned, because when you in a system that's built around corrupt and agony and stress and pain, because like I said, I wasn't the only one dealing with, drug abuse, families, and, broken households. I wasn't the only one. So I came home this time around. I put my 10 toes down on the pavement. I got down with an organization called Just Leadership USA, who's felony friendly, who stand on what I want to stand on is mass incarceration. Why is it that in this day and age, 2018, they putting a price on our freedom, and they actually been doing this for years? Right. How am I innocent to proving guilty, but I gotta pay for this? I gotta pay for my freedom, and if I don't have the money, then I just gotta go to jail. So now I'm sitting in jail because I didn't have the bail money. Right. This time around, I didn't have the bail money, so I had to sit and fight my case on Rikers Island. And being the fact that I wasn't represented right, I had a public defender, which we call them public pretenders, who wanted me to cop out, take the plea bargain and just cop out. And I didn't want to take the plea bargain at the time. So I had to sit on there a year and a half on Rikers Island and kept going to court. It kept prolonging my case. Long story short with that, I wound up copping out. I took a county bullet for a crime that I could have beat, but I didn't have the proper recommendation. Right. So it kind of like led me to feel like society owes me something, or it feels like, society took something from me that I can't get back. So when I came home, I felt I was enraged. I was mad at the world. I was mad at everybody, and I stayed strong. Shout out to the viewers. If you have a belief system, you gotta have a belief system. You gotta seek help. You gotta really seek help, because a lot of people say counseling is not this. Sometimes you gotta be able to express the torment and get it out, because it'll boil over. And I'm like I said, I'm impacted. So I deal with it on a day-to-day basis. I walk in a store. Like yesterday, I went to Macy's yesterday, and I'm being followed around Macy's because I'm black. And I know because I'm black, and it's like, wow, like why society is like this, or why society is built like this. And I ask these questions to myself, and I don't have an answer. What I do know is that I stand on something that I believe in, and I stand on this organization, which is Just Leadership, the whole Close Rikers Island campaign, Free New York. I stand on it because it's a fight that is a never-ending fight. And one of the things that I speak on is, how can you prison reform when you don't have people that been in prison?
Right. So they really can't speak on it.
Right. How are you trying to reform something, but you don't have people that's directly impacted around this round table? And that's why we're here. We're here because we want to see that round table. We tired of just taking anything they give us. No. We want to see that this round table. And the people that's directly impacted need to be at that table. And this is the reason why we're here, to let the viewers know why we're here.
Right.
And directly impacted doesn't mean that you yourself have to have been incarcerated. It could be, you could be the family member of someone who's incarcerated, because you're impacted as well.
That's right.
There's a saying, like, when the person is doing time, the family is doing time with them.
Yes.
So when the visitors are coming up and they're going through that visitor room and they're going through that process, they're being stripped of their dignity the same way we're stripped of our dignity inside. They treat the family members that come up the same exact way. And if you're the sole provider for your family and you're gone, now your family is struggling. Or if you have a child out there, your child has an absentee parent.
Right.
You have to try to parent from prison and stuff. So being directly impacted, I mean, not for nothing, your next door neighbor.
That's right.
Your next door neighbor being incarcerated makes you directly impacted.
Right.
You just having some type of dealings with it. And you know, we live in a world where, we live in a country where we have the highest rate of incarceration in the world.
Yep.
So
Why is that?
means-
Why is that?
means that majority of the people that live here in the U.S. have at some time been arrested, have at some time been incarcerated. And I just don't understand how those who haven't cannot see or understand what this system is really about. How can they not be affected by it? When you walk down the street, I'm pretty sure in one block you probably walk past about 30 felons.
Yep.
How do you turn a blind eye to that? How do you go through your everyday life knowing that there are people who are sitting on Rikers Island or any other county jail who are actually innocent? Because once again, you're innocent until proven guilty. These people haven't been convicted of anything. They're sitting there hoping that they get a discovery packet, which gives them some evidence that the DA has against them. That way they can fight it against it. You know, I didn't get my discovery packet until I was actually sitting in the courtroom in the middle of my pre-trial hearings. I got a discovery packet that shows me everything that they have against me, or everyone that they have against me. And you know, I unfortunately had a co-defendant. So I'm sitting there with my co-defendant and I get this discovery packet and I realize that my co-defendant himself is trying to get himself out of jail and he's throwing me under the bus in the mix of it. And the whole time that I was going back and forth to court, when they wanted me to throw him under the bus, I kept my mouth shut.
Loyal.
Because you know, at the end of the day, if your evidence is not enough to get a conviction and you need my help, then that means you don't really have anything to stand on. So why am I helping you?
Right.
You know, why am I helping you? You obviously don't have the evidence to put us away for the 25 years that they was trying to put us away for. But I can't see this because I don't have this discovery packet. You know, I can't, there's people sitting on Rikers 4, 5, 6 years that are refusing to take a plea deal, because that's how the system is. The system will sit there and wait you out until you are tired and you lose your fight, so you can just cop out, take this plea. That way they can convict you and they can continue to get the money that they're getting for you. Because you know, once you're going to trial and stuff, they have to spend a lot of money on that. A lot of money gets spent, and they don't want to lose that. They don't want that to be in vain. So they sit there and they wait people out so that they have no choice.
Make them give up.
Innocent or guilty, to just say, you know what, fine, I did it. Just give me some time, because you just want to know that you're going to have a release date. So people walk around the streets. People walk around the streets with no money or millions of dollars, and they're totally oblivious to this so-called criminal. It's so-called a criminal justice system, but it's really a criminal injustice system, because who is it giving justice to?
Nobody.
It's not giving justice to anybody.
And to answer your question about how people can like just turn a blind eye to, you know, what's going on in our system and everything. Like I mentioned before on my show, I'm in investment banking. That's my thing. I'm a compliance officer. I'm in the industry where politics rule everything that I do. So, you know, there's one gentleman that I work with, and he always asks me, so what's going on with your show? How's everything going? And whenever I talk about something like this that's passionate to me, he always go, why do you want to help people like that? Like, they're not doing anything for you. And people in that industry, they don't care. So it's a lot of them that walk around here oblivious because it do not affect them at all. And, you know, my response to him is, like we said earlier, you never know when or how you could possibly be placed in a situation like these individuals that you're looking down on. And I mentioned also, there are people sitting there who didn't commit a crime, and they're wasting away because they're giving up. And, you know, all the money that we invest into these big corporations, they invest into the systems, our prison systems. So it goes hand in hand. And, you know, when you said that, it triggered, because that's part of the reason why, you know, I feel it's time for me to move on from that industry that I'm working in now, because is heartless people. And I'm like, I want to do something that's not related to this, that could give people like you and Harvey that opportunity to tell your story, because I don't understand either how they just turn a blind eye to that. And it's depressing in a way.
It is. And one of the things I would like to say for the viewers is, if you think that this issue don't affect you, then you crazy. Because if I tell you it costs $278,000 a year to house one person on Rikers Island.
Just Rikers, not
just
other
Rikers.
facilities.
Yep.
That's not other facilities. That's just Rikers.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is that you're paying for this.
Yes.
The taxpayer in dollars is paying for this. Rikers Island holds 22,000 people. The prison population is down to 8,100.
In Rikers.
That's less than half of the facility that's being run, and that's the taxpayers' dollars paying for that. So the people out there who all feel like this ain't affecting them, this is affecting you.
Yep.
This definitely is affecting you.
Yes. And touching on politics a little bit, because that plays a major part in it. It starts with them. A lot of people may not know exactly, what to look for. For example, when an election is coming up, and they may talk about incarceration. What are some of the key terms that people should look for when when politicians are talking about prison reform? Like,
so when they're talking about prison reform, you need to listen out for things such as putting an end to money bail, not cash bail, but money bail. So what happens is they give a person, normally a person in poverty, a bail that they can't pay. You have to choose between paying your rent, feeding your kids, getting to work, and living a life. You have to choose between that and then getting out of jail. But if you spend that money to get an individual out of jail, there's no telling what debt you're now in. You may not be able to pay your rent. You may not be able to get to work.
right.
You may not be able to put some food on the table for God knows how long, because you just had to spend this money that you really didn't have to get your family member out, because you support them and you know that they're innocent and they need to be able to fight, and it's always better to fight them out there.
Right.
So what they do is they'll say, well, we'll give you $25,000 bond or $25,000 bail with a $20,000 bond. So now I have to put up a house or something. So who's putting up a house? Who in New York City has a house that they actually own? Who's gonna be able to? Like, it's not gonna happen. So we don't want anything dealing with putting up collateral. Nothing with putting up anything that deals with a monetary status. So you want to hear in money bail. You want to hear discovery. You want to hear reform for discovery and speedy trials. And once again, the discovery is so that the person who's defending themselves know what evidence the DA has against them. That way they can continue their fight to free themselves. You wanna hear things about re-entering society, re-entry programs that will help a returning citizen, to be able to deal with the regular day-to-day activities when it comes to coming out. But you also want to hear about felony-friendly organizations, corporations, businesses that are willing to allow these people to come in. So you want to hear that they're getting rid of asking if you're a felon. You want to hear about transitional housing for people who are coming home. You want to hear about different laws and policies being set into play. You want to hear about raise the age. So after, I'm sure everybody knows about Khalif Browder. I don't think I need to tell his story. I'm pretty sure we know about this young boy.
Yeah, rest in peace to Khalif Browder.
Who was a teenager who was arrested for stealing a backpack off of a person who left the country. They had no way of proving that he actually stole this backpack, and he spent 3 years on Rikers Island and was released because the case was dismissed because he was totally innocent, but he was abused inside of Rikers while he was in there. And after he came home and he gave his story, there was nothing in play to help him deal with the trauma
Right.
that he dealt with while he was in there, and he ended up taking his own life, which is not for nothing one of the main reasons why closed Rikers even came into play.
Right.
So, you know, that raised the age, putting a 16-year-old young adult, young male in a prison around 35, 40, 50-year-old men who have been on these streets doing
Right.
God knows what. You know, a teenage mind isn't even developed
Right.
until after 21. It's not even developed. So you have them in there, and now they have to go from watching cartoons and playing video games to becoming a straight adult who has to
Right.
fight for their life. They have to try to learn how to survive in this cold, cold prison world. So you want to hear about them raising the age. You know, and you have to be careful because, like, for instance, de Blasio closing Rikers in 10 years, like 10 years, there's
long.
already historically it's a violent place. You know, it started off as a place where they sold and they sold slaves, they purchased slaves, they buried slaves. It was already a place of oppression. And now you put this jail there that's housing all these people, and that history of violence never changed.
Right.
It's always still the same. So if you close it in 10 years when you're no longer part of the administration, you're no longer there, you know, you can't speak for what the next person's going to do after
Exactly.
you.
Exactly.
The only thing you can do is hope that
Exactly.
it works out. So when they say things to appease you, because that's what it is sound good. You have to really pay attention to a politician when they speak.
Yes.
A politician will sit
Yes.
there and try to use your lingo because they
Lies.
want you to feel like they relate to you, and they really don't. They don't even care about you.
What we going through now?
They care
right.
nothing about you. So when you sit there and you're listening to debates, please, you need to tune into debates. So when you
Yes.
hear, for instance, Governor Cuomo and going against Cynthia Nixon in a debate, and you hear them talking, you need to hear education. You need to hear in mass incarceration. You need to hear discovery laws. You need to hear different bills that are being passed to in solitary confinement. You need to listen to what's gonna happen to people who have mental health issues. What's gonna happen to people who have substance abuse issues. Like, what's gonna happen to these people is what you have to pay attention to, because this affects you, it affects your family, and it affects everybody that's around you. You can't just hear Democrat and be like,
Right,
I'm gonna vote
right.
Democrat, or
Right,
Republican,
right.
I'm gonna vote Republican. No, you need to hear what each individual candidate is saying and make sure that you don't have to question it. Because if you have to question it, they're not speaking to you.
Yep.
If you have to
Yep.
question, if you have to really sit there and question and ask, hey, do you think he's saying this? No, they're not saying that.
Right.
You want to hear specific things. You want to hear end in the beginning of everything. In this, in that, in that.
Yep. It's true, and I think especially right now, it's important that people pay attention to everything that's being said in
Everything.
this. I might as well say it's in the game of politics, because it's
Yeah,
a big game
that's
now.
It's a game.
And they're gambling and playing Russian roulette with people's lives.
That's right. That's right.
And
I'm
it's
sorry,
it's so
I'm sorry.
it's so
I'm
much.
sorry. One more thing. You need to make sure that it's systemic. So, like, this doesn't just affect New York State. It affects the whole entire U.S. of A. And you need to make sure that they're talking about actually ending it for this country. Like, there's a lot of systemic issues that are going on, and most people are not aware of it. So I advise, it would behoove you, I will beg of you to really do research. Like, the internet is a beautiful thing. You can find everything
Yes.
at your fingertips. Go on. Don't take my word. Don't take Harvey's word. You don't have to take anybody else's word for it. Go online, do your own research, and see what's really going on behind those walls, what's really going on within our system. And please, for all of you young viewers, and even the older ones that walk around with Michael Jordan sneakers, know that those of you who are out there selling the drug to get the next pair of J's that are coming out, for those of you who are standing outside of stores waiting to hit somebody over the head so you can steal their pair of J's, know that he has a spot for you.
Yep.
Because Michael Jordan's money is in private prison.
Yep.
So the same person that you idolize, everybody wants to be like Mike. If you have his talent, by all means, great. Do something different with it though. Don't go the way he went, because he has no problem with locking your behind up.
Yep.
Because he's going to make even more money. So he got the sneaker money, and now he got the rest of the money for the time that you're gonna be in there.
Yep. It's so much behind it. It's so much behind it. And like you said, people have to, do the research. And a lot of people don't. They just take the word of other people. And I had to learn not to do that, a long time ago, and to do my own thing, do my own research. So I don't it's such a deep topic, because you can't cover one thing without getting into one other part of it, and then that other part, it uncovers so much more.
That's right.
Oh,
What it is, honestly, what it really is, what it all boils down to, I feel like, and I could be wrong, I feel like it's a war against the poor.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I think it's been like that forever.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling like, we at bay, keep them at bay.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to my viewers. I would want my viewers to watch Crime and Punishment. That's a good documentary. But honestly, I feel like it's a war against poor. Why is you putting cash on my freedom?
Right.
So let me just brief the viewers on like what our organization is doing. We're trying to end mass incarceration. How do we do that? Right. We advocate speedy trial, no cash bail, no cash bail. Now let me explain to you speedy trial. Speedy trial, right? Why should it take 3 to 4 years, 2 to 3 years to prove you're innocent, when it take 2 to 3 days to lose a job? So that's speedy trial. Why should it take, if I'm innocent, why I gotta sit in Rikers Island for 2 to 3 years to prove my innocence? That's crazy. That's the first bill, speedy trial. The second bill is discovery law. Why is the prosecutor and the DA is withholding evidence to free me? So my public defender is dropping motions on a district attorney, on a DA, to withhold that evidence to free me. They don't have to give up that evidence, which is a day. They have rights to give that evidence a day before trial. So here it is. I waited 2 years for this evidence. Here it is, a day before trial. Now you want my public defender to take this evidence and be able to, it's not going to work.
It's a setup.
It's a setup.
It's all a setup.
That's a setup. The last one is no cash bail, right? Did I say that one?
No money bail.
Oh, no money bail. In money bail. In money bail. Why in money bail? Because why is you putting a price on our freedom? So if I don't have $1,500, let alone, let's break the numbers down. Let's go shorter. If I hop the train, right, for $2.50, right, $2.75, $2.50, right, I hop the train. I don't have $500. I didn't have $2.50. What makes you think I'm gonna have $500 to bail out of jail? I didn't have, so therefore, I gotta sit in jail now. Now my bail was $500. I don't have $500, so if I have $500, then I wouldn't have to deal with jail. But I don't have $500, so I got to deal with jail. And the mix of being in jail, being on Rikers Island, I dealt with the torment, the fighting, and the tussling, and just the mass of trouble, mass of it's Rikers Island. See, a lot of people speak about Rikers Island and they haven't been there. You know what I'm saying? You have people that, oh, let's close this, let's do this, let's do that. When you actually sat there and stayed on Rikers Island, it's people that caught crabs from the blankets, the smell, the sewer system, the torment with the COs. And I'm not speaking on as far as the people that's in there. COs got to go through it as well.
Right.
They got to go through, exactly. They get traumatized as well. Because you in jail. You in jail 8 hours, and don't let them, you might got to do a 16 shift. You in jail for the next 25 years. I have asked officers, my organization, we sat down with COs. I had sat down with a CO probably 2-3 days ago, and one of the things, I grew up with this kid, and I asked him, I said, yo, is your life the same? He's looked at me, he said, yo, Harvey, my life is not the same no more, Harv. I said, why is that? He said, Harv, the ish that I got to deal with on a day-to-day basis at work, Harvey, my life is not the same. So like I said, that's one. So the last one.
But he could hypothetically speaking, he could possibly find another job, whereas you, like, someone incarcerated can't do that.
Right.
So, right?
Right.
Well,
Can
I
I say?
mean, so my sister became a CO because they were the first one to call her. So she was taking all these city, state, federal exams and stuff, but, you know, corrections hopped on immediately. And for a lot of people, it ends up being like that. It ends up being to where it's like, I'm looking for employment. I need a career. I don't want to just take just anything, but I need a career. I need benefits. You know, I have a household I need to maintain. I have plans and dreams, and nothing else is biting.
Okay.
Nothing else is biting. And then you also have to think about other things that come into play. Social factors.
Right.
Person from the black and brown community goes up for an interview with someone from the non-black or brown community. Who's going to get that job first?
Right.
It doesn't matter what credentials you have.
That's right.
Who's going to get that job?
Right.
Like, we still live in a world that's based off of racism.
That's right.
We live in a world that's based off of a man-made thing.
Yes.
That's right.
Not
Yes.
something that was just put into play. We were just born this way.
Yes.
No, this is something that man-made. And somehow it's still very much alive and effective. So some officers really can't take another job. Some of them
right.
really have no choice but to be there working, and those are the ones that it affects the most,
Right.
because they have to choose between being them and then being their uniform. So, you know, as an officer who comes and speaks to an incarcerated individual like they're a human being, the other officers are looking down on them.
Right. Okay.
Or
That's right.
now they're trying to find ways to get that officer in trouble because now they feel like, oh, they are too
Attached or
as the word that we
interacting
don't
with-
want to use, but this is the word they use. They're too inmate friendly. They're too friendly with those felons, those convicts. So there must be something wrong with them, or they must be doing something that they should have no business doing. So, you know, I mean, it's not just bad for the person that's being detained. It's just bad for everybody.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
And you know, another thing with the bail, you have an innocent person who can't pay their bail sitting inside, and let's just go with the men because it's far more worse and violent in the men's jails. And now you're sitting there and you have a gang of dudes come up on you and they pop on you, they just start
Right.
hitting you. What are you supposed to do? Not defend yourself? And
Not
now, you know,
defend
they say a scared individual will be the person that kills you. So let's
Yeah.
just say this person out of fright,
Yep.
out of fright, he got 5 guys beating on him. Out of fright, he grabs one, holds on to them, and now this guy dies.
Right.
Now we have an innocent person who shouldn't have been in there to begin with,
Right.
who now has to face some real charges that would have never happened had he not been in there to begin with.
Right. Yep.
So this is one of the reasons why we trying to close Rikers Island, because the torment that goes on Rikers Island is crazy. Like one of the things, we not with building facilities, man. We not with building more jails out the 5 boroughs. No, we not with that. If anything, we don't even want these facilities to call jails.
Right.
We want these
Rehabilitation
rehabilitation
centers,
centers or
restorative
something.
justice.
Right. We want something, a different kind of name on it. That's why we even trying to change the language. We're not saying
Right.
inmates. We're not saying convicts. We're not saying them words. Because at the end of the day, they're our people, man.
Right. Right. Yes. Yes. Wow.
We want these facilities to we don't even want them to look like a jail.
Right.
We don't want that Rikers Island culture. Cause see, what happens is if we sit there and they put these borough-based facilities up, but they take everybody from Rikers and put them in there. They take all the staffing from Rikers and put them in there. You have Rikers all over
Right.
again,
That's right.
now in
Right.
5 different or 4 different
Right.
boroughs.
That's right.
We don't. That's not what our idea is. Our idea is to heal people. Our idea is to build up people, to give them something, some hope, to give them something to look forward to give them a
Right.
skill, to give them some education. A lot of people, everybody in this world needs to heal from something.
Yep.
That's right.
Yes.
Whether it was something that was
Yes.
done to you when you was 1 and you remember it, or it was something that was done to you this morning. Everybody needs to heal. And most people who are in this system, who are committing crimes, are committing these crimes, or they became crimes because they weren't able to heal
Right.
from whatever was going on.
Yep.
They weren't able to heal from. So let's use Harvey for instance. What if what if Harvey didn't learn his lesson his second time around after what happened to him from him coming up? So the way of life he knew was the way of survival.
Right.
It
Yes,
was
that's
what
what it is,
it was
surviving.
what society basically forced him to have to learn. So now what if he didn't learn that? What if he wasn't sitting here before us in this capacity, but he was instead out on the streets doing even worse things? Because while he was behind that wall, he didn't have that time to heal.
Right.
He's still mad at the world. He's still mad at his mom. I see him with his mom. He has a beautiful relationship with her. You would have never thought his childhood was the way it is. But what if he was a bitter individual?
Right.
There'd be no telling what's going on. And there's so many people that get released who still have that bitterness in them because they don't even know where to begin to heal.
Yep.
They don't even know where the problem is or why they were even committing these crimes. As far as they're concerned, I needed to feed my kid.
Right. Yeah.
I needed to pay my rent. Or this man was whipping my behind and I tried to get him off me. Or like there's just so many different endless possibilities of why someone is in there. And once again, like the world that we live in, everybody is like every man for themselves.
Yes.
Every man for themselves. You know, back in the days it took a village to raise a child. Nowadays there's nobody raising these kids.
Internet.
There's nobody. The internet, social media is raising them. Social media is raising our children. Media
Cruz and I,
itself
we
is
be
raising
talking
our
about
children.
that a lot, don't we, Cruz?
Internet.
Even
social
and
media,
even
yeah.
and even when we go with education, you know, we have the school to prison pipeline. You know, our schools in neighborhoods of color are automatically basically designed to prepare you for jail. You go into school to get an education, but you have to go through a metal detector. You go in jail. I mean, you go into school. When I was in school, my person that sat at the desk wore regular civilian clothing. The school safety or the security guards that were there when I was in school, one of them was my friend's father. They were people from the community, and they weren't people of law enforcement. They weren't there to enforce law. They were there to, you're in school, you do what you have to do, you handle your business. How was class today, Johnny? Oh, would you get on that test? Nowadays, no. You walk into school, you see a whole bunch of police, and it's like,
that's how they making school feel, like a prison.
like a prison.
Yeah.
You know, they got this detention. Detention is solitary confinement. You know, they're already preparing them to have to sit into this room by themselves and be away from everybody and everything that they know. So when they get to prison and they go to solitary, they can sit with it. They're able to sit there with no problem. So they think. Like, they need to end that. We have all these teachers that are in these schools. And for instance, I'm from Staten Island. My teachers came from Jersey. What can a teacher from Jersey? We don't look alike. We don't speak alike. We don't sound alike. You have an accent. I don't. Well, you know, to you I have an accent. But half the time, if we had if it was a snowstorm or something, my teachers weren't even showing up because they lived too far. But my teacher doesn't know what's going on in my neighborhood. My teacher doesn't know that maybe I'm sitting here with my head down because maybe I have a headache because I haven't eaten in days. No, it's not that I don't want to learn. It's that right now, physically, I'm not capable of learning. And I'm a teacher. I teach in Brownsville Community Justice Center. I teach 17 to 24-year-olds and then some who have to deal with these same social issues. They live in Brownsville. They can't go from one building to the next. We had to split and have two different sites because some of our students couldn't come to learn because they would have to fight. And I asked my students, well, how come you guys didn't finish high school? And one of the girls said, I was tired of having to fight to go to school every day. Just to walk to school to get the education was hard. It was rough. So now, no, it's not that Johnny or Shaniqua or Hawakatima didn't come to school because they didn't feel like it. It's because they were probably going on their way to the hospital because they just got jumped by the whole building. You know, it's not that I can't focus because I have ADD. It's not that I can't focus because of that. You know, no, maybe I can't focus because I really don't know where my mother has been for the last week. Or maybe I don't know what's going to happen when I walk in my door. Or maybe I don't know if my sisters are gonna be able to eat. So these are the things that's on my mind, and I really can't focus on this math problem that you want to put up there because that's not my problem right now.
Right. Yep.
So we have these teachers that are in these schools, and the students can't relate to them, and they can't relate to the students, and the teachers, they become overwhelmed. They become impatient. They start to change. Their character changes because they feel like these students don't care. They don't care, and that's not the case. But they would never know because they're not from my community.
Yes.
They're not going through what I have to go through. So now I can't get my education. So I can't go get a job somewhere. So now where does that leave me? I'm a woman. Am I supposed to go sell my behind? What am I supposed to do?
You just ran down a whole lot of what I seen in high school. Seriously, everything you said, I could relate to it because I seen it within my fellow classmates. Everybody had that story, and like you said, teachers were in the class that could not relate to them.
That's right.
And they would try to give some type of positive insight on something, but it came to the point where one of the girls, I'll never forget, my junior year, she said, please stop trying to, put a positive spin on my negative life. You don't live with me.
Right.
You don't know nothing of what I go through. You go home to your suburban house with your husband and your kids. Y'all sit down, you have dinner. And she said, you know who I go home to? Nobody. She said, I don't know where my mother is. I don't know where my father is. I take care of my little brother. And she was like, I have a job, but managing school and a job and taking care of my brother. She said, that's not my responsibility. Right. So she was like, stop telling me, trying to put a positive spin on my negative life. You don't know nothing about what I go through.
Right. Unless you're gonna actually give me a solution, like solve this problem for me, help me out.
And then also within our community, I was debating with someone about this too, because he was saying he's a person of color, how people of color, we don't want to learn when we go to school. We go there and we make trouble. And I was like, I don't know what kind of neighborhood you grew up in, but that's a different story. Right. So I was like, how can you say we don't want to learn when we come to school? Our books are torn. You can't read the words that's in the books. You have a teacher that repeat the same thing that you learned 4 or 5 years ago, telling you lies about your history and stuff like that. And I'm like, you can't say we don't want to learn. We want to learn, but with the resources that we have, it's limited. Right. So it's so much of a backstory to everything. And I hope, with this show, people listened, and when it comes time to try and make change, they understand what to look for so that we can start changing things. And for leaders who are in the communities, I hope they reach out to you so you could come and talk to kids and everything, and sit down and, talk to people to try and bring some type of change, because I know it's not easy being individuals by yourself, and even with the organization, you have to have people behind you.
Yes.
And like you said, we'll back Michael Jordan with sneakers, but when it comes to something productive, where are the people?
That's right. That's right.
So,
and my thing, I definitely would like to say one of the things that I definitely understand that Glenn Martin, which is the formal president of this organization, one of the things that he always say was the one closest to the problems, closest to the solution.
That's right.
And we are closest to the problem, and we are the solution. You know what I mean? And this is the solution, is educating our peoples, educating the people on mass incarceration, and understanding like what our organization is doing. One of the things I want to state was, you see the shirt, it says Close Rikers Island, right? On the bottom of it, it says Build Communities. And that's where we at. Where we at with the Build Community apart. That part right there is a very, very valuable part. Understanding that we took a bold demand, right? If we said we was gonna close Rikers Island 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, people would have laughed at us. People would have laughed at us. We'll close Rikers Island. Psh, get out of here. So now, two years later, it's 2018. We got the mayor, the governor. This is like, they acting like this is their project now. Everybody's speaking
That's
about.
What always
yeah,
happens.
right. I could have like the hand out this shirt 2 years ago was like, what is that shirt? Now it was like, yo, let me get a shirt. Yo, let me get one of those shirts. So what I'm saying is that we took a bold demand on closing Rikers Island, to the point where, like I said, it's in mayors, elected officials, is in their mouth now. We are taking a bold demand now with the money. So when we say build communities, we following the money. The money that took, for instance, it take Rikers Island to transport people from Rikers Island to the city jail. Rikers Island to the city courts. It costs $35 million a year. That's just the transportation. When Rikers Island is closed, we want the community to scream about that $35 million. That's just $35 million. That's just on transportation. We arguing about that. We making a bold demand on the money because the system taught my community. The system, mass incarceration, taught my community. So we making a bold demand, and our bold demand is, listen, we want this money put that money back into our community. So it's not only about closing jails and no, it's about building our communities. The same community that the system corrupted. Remember I was telling you guys about the $1 million blocks? Yeah, $1 million blocks. So now here it is, it's kids coming home back to these $1 million blocks. Now, and they coming home to nothing.
No resources.
No resources, no nothing. No, we not having that. We making a bold demand, and this is why we here today. We making a bold demand on closing Rikers Island, and we doing that. And we doing that. And 10 years is definitely too long.
Right.
But now we at the part, now we at the part where we trying to build communities. And that's what we have.
So with the build communities, we hold build community assemblies in all 5 boroughs where you guys can come out and voice your opinion. You can be heard. You can say what it is that you want in your community. Because I'm from Staten Island, I know what I need in my community, but I can't tell you what the Bronx needs, or I can't tell you what Brooklyn needs or Queens needs, because my needs is not your needs. So you guys need to come out to these assemblies, and you need to get your voice heard. Let us know. Do you need recreational centers? Do you need clinics? Like, what is it that you need that's going to make your community better, that's going to make it safer, that's going to make it more productive, that's going to make it more promising and successful? And then there's always town halls. Every community, there's town halls. You go to those town halls and you speak up. Like, we're living in a day and age where people just use their phones and record things, but they don't say anything. Right. They don't say anything. We need people to actually speak up. You can't talk amongst yourselves and complain about all the things that's wrong, but you didn't go out and vote.
Right. Yeah.
You can't say, oh man, Donald Trump, this, that, and the third, but you didn't vote. Now, if you voted, then by all means, you have all the right to say something. But if you haven't gotten your behind out there to vote, and even at a local level, because it's the local level that really affects us. It's the local level. You go out and you vote for your attorney generals who's over the DAs. You will vote for your mayor who's over those county jails. You vote for your governor who's over the legislative part of that. You go out there and you vote for that. You even vote for judges. Y'all don't even realize that. You have to go out there and you have to really, really put your 2 cents in. And yes, there's a lot of people who are like, my vote don't count. I voted for Hillary. I didn't vote for Donald. But guess what? Not enough people voted. And I mean, I personally wouldn't have voted for Hillary neither, because that's just another story. But you want to make sure
if you
that you're
say
heard.
You want change, you have to go out there.
You have to go out there and do it. You can't just sit in the background.
My thing is.
We out of time. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We out of time.
Yes. For real?
At least we got the vote part in.
Can I close out? Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. This was such a great conversation. I greatly appreciate you coming here, and I want you to come back if you will be willing to come back.
Definitely.
And I definitely want to get even more into this topic because it's very important, especially with the voting.
Yes.
Right. Because we do have the power to make changes, but people refuse to actually get up and believe that we have that power to go out and do it. But I definitely want you to come back and to talk some more with me. And I want you to give out information of how people could come out to the assembly that you was mentioning, so they could voice and talk about the things in their community and what they want to change.
So you can go on social media, Just Leadership USA, Close Rikers Campaign, Free New York. We're located at 19, is it 19?
119th Lexington Avenue. 119th and Lexington Avenue. Is in Harlem. What else?
And the address is 1900 Lexington Avenue.
1900 Lexington Avenue.
We have membership meetings
Membership
the
meetings.
first Thursday of each month. We have action nights also. But you know, just go on the site, look for Just Leadership USA, or stop by, or just look for our flyers out there, look for our T-shirts, and you know, just ask some questions. You could come in, you could sit in our meetings. You can join the team. Like, we definitely need every single body.
Without the people's, we can't do this, y'all. So we need the people's input. We need the people to get involved. Don't wait till something happens to start doing something. Do something now.
And for those of y'all that feel as if, you know, why should we do this? The reason we should do this is because nearly 70% are legally innocent that are sitting behind those walls.
70%, y'all.
70%. And this is on any given day. All right? And you know, it affects everybody. Especially if you don't know your rights. You know, a person, for all you guys who are out there smoking marijuana,
who think that is actually legal,
who
but
thinks
it's
that it's legal, but it's a trap, just know that yes, you can get a summons.
That's right.
And you can get a bench warrant.
Yes.
And you can get another summons.
And go to jail.
No, they cannot process you unless you already have a felony or on probation or parole. They cannot throw you through the whole entire system, but you can still
be a victim.
Be accounted for it. So the same way they hold us accountable for things, we need to make sure that we hold our politicians accountable for things.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So Bill de Blasio needs to be held accountable. Cuomo needs to be held accountable. And I say make sure that you check this out, because Cynthia Nixon is running for governor at this point, and Jumaane Williams is running for lieutenant governor. I don't know if anybody knows, but Cynthia Nixon was part of Sex of the City. Jumaane Williams is a brother, and they have joined the fight of ending mass incarceration. They have joined the fight of having equal education for all people, and they have joined the fight for ending bail.
That's right.
So I want everybody to go on their website that they mentioned, and I want you to read up on it, and I want everyone to get behind Tamika and Harvey so we can make changes to our
system.
Yes. So I greatly appreciate you guys coming here.
Thank
and
you.
Again, I want you to come back.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks for having us.
No,
and
thanks
for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We jamming? Hell yeah, we jamming. In the